Morgana had scarcely waited a quarter of an hour when the captain of the robbers awoke. He got up, opened the window, and looked out. All was dark, and a profound silence reigned around. He gave the signal by throwing the pebbles, many of which struck the jars, as the sound plainly proved. He listened, but heard nothing that could lead him to suppose his men obeyed the summons. He became uneasy at this delay, and threw some pebbles a second, and even a third time. They all struck the jars, yet nothing appeared to indicate that the signal was answered. In the utmost alarm, he descended into the court, and approaching the first jar, intending to ask if the robber contained in it, and whom he supposed still living, was asleep, he smelt a strong scent of hot and burning oil issuing from the jar. Then he began to suspect that his enterprise against Alibaba to destroy him, pillage his house, and carry off, if possible, all the money which he had taken from him and the community had failed. He proceeded to the next jar, and to all in succession, and discovered that all his men had shared the same fate, and by the diminution of the oil in the vessel which he had brought full, he guessed the means that had been used to deprive him of the assistance he expected. Mortified at having thus missed his aim, he jumped over the garden gate which led out of the court, and going from one garden to another by getting over the walls, he made his escape. The next morning,
My good master, may heaven preserve you and all your family. You will be better informed of what you wish to know when you have seen what I am going to show you. I am convinced that this is the conclusion of a scheme of which I observed the beginning 2 or 3 days ago, but with the particulars of which I did not think it necessary to trouble. One morning, as I returned from the city at an early hour, I perceived the street door marked with white, and on the following day there was a red mark near the white one. Each time, without knowing for what purpose these marks were made, I made the same kind of mark, and in the same part, on the doors of 3 or 4 of our neighbors, on each side of this house. If you connect that fact with what has happened, you will find that the whole is a scheme, contrived by the thieves of the forest, whose troop, I know not wherefore, seems to be diminished by 2. But be that as it may, the band is now reduced to 3 at most. This proves that the robbers had determined on your death, and you will do right to be on your guard against them so long as you are certain that one still remains. On my part, I will do all in my power toward.
I will reward you as you deserve before I die. I owe my life to you, and to give you an immediate proof of my feelings, I give you your liberty from this moment, and will soon reward you in more ample manner. I am as thoroughly convinced as you are that the 40 robbers laid this snare for me. Through your means, Allah has delivered me from the danger. What we have now to do is to use this utmost dispatch in burying the bodies of this pest of the human race. Yet, we must do so with much secrecy, that no one can entertain the slightest suspicion of their fate. And for this purpose, I will instantly go to work with Abdallah.
the captain carefully made his next plan. He had assumed the name of Khoja Hussain, took an early opportunity of offering those respects to the merchants. The son of Ali Baba, being young and of pleasing address, and the captain having more frequent occasion to converse with him than with the others, the 2 men soon formed an intimacy. This friendship the robbers soon resolved to cultivate with greater assiduity and care, When he recognized Alibaba, who came to see his son, as he was in the constant habit of doing, and on inquiring of the son, Kojo Sain discovered that his foe was the young man's father. He now increased his attentions to him. He made him several presents, and often invited him to his table, where he regaled him very handsomely.
My son, tomorrow is Friday, and as it is a day on which most considerable merchants, such as Kogya Hossein and yourself, keep their shut, invite him to take a walk with you after dinner. On your return, plan manners that you may pass my house, and then beg him to come in. It will be better to manage thus than to invite him in a formal way. I will give orders to Morgana to prepare a supper by the time you come.
On the Friday, Kojo Hossein and the son of Alibaba met in the afternoon to take their walk together, as had been agreed. On their return, Alibaba's son led Kojo Hossein through the street in which his father lived, and when they had reached the house, he knocked at the door.
This is my father's house. He has desired me to procure him the honor of your acquaintance. I entreat you to add this favor to the many I have received from you.
Alibaba received Kojo Hossein in a friendly manner, and gave him as hearty a welcome as he could desire. In the middle of their conversation,
It's this. I never eat any dish that has salt in it. Judge when what a strange figure at your table.
If this is your only reason, it need not deprive me of the honor to your company at supper. In the first place, the bread which is eaten at my house does not contain salt, and as for the meat and the other dishes, I promise you there shall be none in those which are placed before you. I will now go to give orders to that effect. Therefore, do me the favor to remain, and I will be with you again in an instant.
Alibaba went into the kitchen and desired Morgiana not to put any salt to the meat she was going to serve for supper. He also told her to prepare, without any salt, 2 or 3 of those dishes he had ordered.
Who is this fastidious man that cannot eat salt? Your supper will be entirely spoiled if I delay it.
Do not be angry. He is a good man. Do as I desire you.
Morgiana obeyed, though much against her will. She felt some curiosity to see this man who did not eat salt. When she had finished her preparations and Abdallah had prepared the table, she assisted him in carrying in the dishes. On looking at Kojo Hossein, she instantly recognized him, notwithstanding his disguise, as the captain of the robbers, and she perceived that he had a dagger concealed under his dress.
I am no longer surprised that this villain will not eat salt with my master. He is his bitterest enemy, and means to murder him, but I will yet prevent him from accomplishing his purpose.
Kojo Hossein, or rather the captain of the 40 Thieves, now thought he had achieved a favorable opportunity for revenging himself on Alibaba by taking his life.
I will make them both drunk. Then the son will be unable to prevent my plunging my dagger in the heart of his father, and I shall escape by the way of the garden as I did before, while the cook and the slave are at their supper, or perhaps asleep in the kitchen.
Morgiana dressed herself like a dancing girl, put on a headdress suitable to the character she assumed, and wore round her waist a girdle of silver gilt, to which she fastened the dagger inside of the same metal. Her face was covered by a very handsome mask. When she had thus disguised herself, she said to Abdallah,
Take your tabor, and let us go and entertain our master's guest, and the friend of his son, by the music and dance we sometimes practice together.
Come in, Morgana. We have all these skills in this household, and it is only my slave and my cook whom you see. I hope you will find their efforts amusing.
When Abdallah perceived that Alibaba and Kojo Hossein had ceased speaking, he he again began to play on his tabor, singing to it an air to the tune in which Morgana might dance. She, who was equal in skill to any professional dancer, performed her part so admirably that even a critical spectator must have been delighted. But of the company, perhaps Kojo Hossein was the least attentive to her excellence. After she had performed several dances with equal grace and agility, Morgiana at length drew out the dagger, and dancing with it in her hand, she surpassed all she had yet done, sometimes presenting the dagger as if ready to strike, and at others holding it to her own bosom, pretending to stab herself.
Wretch! What hast thou done? Thou hast ruined me and my family forever.
What I have done is not for your ruin, but for your safety.
Then opening Kojo Hossein's robe to show Alibaba the poniard which was concealed under it, she continued,
Behold the cruel enemy you had to deal with! Examine his countenance attentively, and you will recognize the pretended oil merchant and the captain of the 40 robbers. Do you not recollect that he refused to eat salt with you? Before I even saw him, from the moment you told me of this peculiarity in your guest, I suspected his design, and you are now convinced that my suspicions were not unfounded.
Alibaba, who now understood the fresh obligation he owed to Morgiana for having thus preserved his life a second time, embraced her and said,
Morgiana, I give you your liberty, and at the same time promise to show you stronger proofs of my gratitude to some future period. This period has now arrived. I present you to my son as his wife. I believe you to be dutiful as a son, to take it amiss if I bestow Morgana upon you without previously consulting your inclinations. Your obligation to her is not less than to mine. You plainly see that Kogia Hossein only sought your acquaintance, that he might gain an opportunity to carry out his diabolical treachery. And had he sacrificed me to his vengeance, you cannot suppose that you would have been spared.
From that time, Alibaba and his son, whom he took to the cave and taught the secret of entering it, and after them their posterity, who were also entrusted with the important secret, lived in a great splendor, enjoying their riches with moderation, and honored with the most dignified situations in the city.